Greetings and welcome. Well, as many of you know, Nibiru is a real hot topic these days. In fact, Nibiru has been in and out of the news and in and out of topics for, since the late 90s. And so it is a topic that keeps on cropping up. And what is the truth about this? What is the truth about this? You know, one person says one thing, one person says another. I've heard one of the most ludicrous theories I've ever heard in the last couple of weeks, where somebody's predicting that by October 21st, Nibiru is going to crash into the earth. Now, let me just tell you one thing. If Nibiru crashed into the earth, it would be all over for the earth, because Nibiru is 4 times the size of Jupiter, and it would utterly obliterate the entire world if it crashed into our planet. However, because it is so huge, the effects of it, because one of the reasons is its gravitational field is so intense. Also, the electromagnetic portion of its field is just simply out of this world. And when Nibiru comes, and it does come, every 3,600 years or so, Nibiru pops out. And it's a surprise because the encounters with Nibiru are so traumatic to the human race that after each passage, mankind would prefer to forget about what just happened. And so, in a few hundred years after the passage, it becomes a distant myth, and eventually it just goes back into the dust or the mists of history until it comes by again. Now, Nibiru, it has a very eccentric orbit of 3,600 years. And that is called a SAR, by the way. 1 SAR is 3,600 years. Now, keep that in mind. It is a very important number. 3,600 or 36, you see? Or a multiple of 6. And the Anunnaki, who are the people on Nibiru, they use a base 6 system because they have 6 fingers on each hand and 6 toes on each foot instead of 5 like we do. And also, they are giants. Yes, they are giants. Because you see, Nibiru is such a larger place that it is possible to become a giant, because the gravitational field on the inside is not necessarily all that bad. But the proximity of Nibiru is absolutely devastating to the Earth and other planets. For example, Uranus is tilted over on its axis. And there are various moons. In fact, Pluto is probably an escaped moon of Neptune. And all kinds of crazy things have happened in the outer solar system, which point to a planet X being there. But you see, its orbit is pitched by about 30 degrees from the ecliptic. The ecliptic is the plane in which all the planets revolve. All the planets in this solar system revolve around the ecliptic. Now, Nibiru is not in the ecliptic. And so what this means is that Nibiru is not natural to this solar system. It came from somewhere else. It's sort of like a rogue planet that was captured by the sun, who knows how long ago, and has been in a sort of unstable orbit ever since. Now, there are some weird things about Nibiru when you start to think about it. Supposedly, Nibiru is the home of the Anunnaki. And yet, Nibiru spends most of its time in the dark depths of outer space. So how in the world could life be on Nibiru under these circumstances, in this situation? Well, it's because we don't understand fully exactly what's going on. Now, there's only two ways. There's only two ways that life could exist on Nibiru when it's on such a eccentric orbit and spends most of its time in the icy depths of the solar system. The number one theory is that Nibiru is actually a dwarf star, either a brown or a red dwarf, and it has 7 planets around it. That's one theory. Now, it's so dim and so weak that in order for life to be sustained in that way, the planet would have to be very close to its star. So that's one theory, that Nibiru is a star. Now, there is another theory. Well, there's also the hollow earth type theory that says that all planets are hollow. So that's a possibility too. Another possibility, I've never heard anywhere else. But I developed this theory, oh dear, it must be over 10 years ago. And to me, this theory is the only thing that makes sense. The only thing that makes sense. Now, what I'm proposing is that Nibiru is actually a gigantic Dyson sphere that was built. Now, what a Dyson sphere is was exemplified in a Star Trek The Next Generation episode. And what would happen is that a very advanced civilization would think of a way to perpetuate itself and to keep on going. And one way of doing this is to build a Dyson sphere around their star. Now, if you are building a Dyson sphere, there is so much effort and so much energy involved in creating a Dyson sphere that you would want to make sure that it was usable for a long period of time. Now, it just so happens that either a brown or a red dwarf are some of the longest lasting stars that there is. In other words, there are some brown dwarfs that are almost as old as the universe. That's how old they are. And they're still here, and they're still going to be here because they burn very slowly and they don't expend all that much energy. So, if you were a sentient race and you wanted to build something special for your people, you would create a Dyson sphere around either a red or a brown dwarf. And because that's the longest lasting star there is. Now, you would have to build the inner surface of the Dyson sphere very close to the surface of this star, as opposed to if you built it around a star like the sun. But the benefit is that it will last for a long, long time. Now, I am very certain that Nibiru is not a natural star and is not a natural planet, but it is a gigantic Dyson sphere. Because if you even take a small star, like a brown dwarf, and build out the outer surface, or the inner surface, of the Dyson sphere around that star, then you would build it fairly close to the surface of that star. But the benefit would be that it would last and last and last, virtually forever. And so that is what the Anunnaki did ages and ages ago. They took a solar system, a small solar system, and built a Dyson sphere around it, and that became Nibiru, or what the Sumerians call the planet of the crossing. Now, what does that mean? What does crossing mean? Well, remember, Nibiru does not originate in this solar system. Nibiru was captured at some point in the distant past, probably several 100,000 years ago at least, possibly millions of years ago. It was captured. So before this, well, let me back up a little bit, because there is some information I have to share with you that you won't find anywhere else, and that information has been shared directly to my mind. So I've even had a vision where I was on Nibiru. Now, so Nibiru is probably the source of the life on this planet, and was the source of life that was on Mars and Tiamat. So it provided the source material for life in this solar system. It was sort of like a huge seed bank. But now, Nibiru is almost dead. But now it's almost dead. It's been winding down over millions and millions of years like a sad clock. And it is in a pattern of decay from which it will never recover. The Anunnaki have been able to keep things going for now, but they are really trying to adapt this earth to themselves, see? Because the Anunnaki also have a God complex. They think that they are gods. Well, the rest of us are not. So they're extremely advanced. So that's one of the things they want to do, is they want to do something to our sun as they come. So as they come closer, it'll do something to our sun, which will make it act up. That is why we've had global warming and all of that other stuff. So you want to have global warming? Well, global warming is not a man-made event. Global warming is a cyclical event that happens periodically as Nibiru approaches the sun. And then, of course, sparks flee out from the area that's being affected, and it makes a whole mess. Now, one thing that caught my attention recently, there was a story on the internet that there was some kind of massive series of volcanic eruptions, and they've had problems like that where they basically can't do anything. They basically can't do anything. It's just a mess. It's just a mess. And this is what happens every single time. If you look in the cauldron, you will see historical accounts of the other encounters we've had with Nibiru. And the cauldron calls Nibiru the Destroyer. But I'm going to call it, I'm going to just call it like dinner, because, you know, if they want to be stupid and throw away perfectly good food, you know, somebody might as well have it. Anyway, so let's get back to Dyson spheres now. On the insider surface of the of Nibiru is a huge surface, 4 times the size of Jupiter. Now, you could fit 1,000 Earths into one Jupiter. So just imagine how many people you can put away there. It's simply amazing. It's simply amazing. So, you know, Nibiru is therefore a Dyson sphere secure around the what is that now? Well, one of the things that provides access is a stargate. There are stargates scattered all over the Earth. Not only, what was I going to say now? The surface of Nibiru is therefore very large. It's 4 times the size of Jupiter. So there's plenty of room. That's why the Anunnaki are giants, because they don't come from here. So when they come, when they do their thing, that is a time to be on alert, because danger is approaching very, very quickly. So I hope this has dispelled some of the rumors. Now, the thing is, some of the Anunnaki use spaceships to get around in, while others use what's called stargates. And there are stargates all over the Earth. There's one water stargate in the Gulf of Aden, and there's water gates, or whatever you want to call it, elsewhere. And then the rest of them are on land. So there's probably about 4 or 5 more stargates. So there are a lot of stargates. And the Anunnaki the higher class Anunnaki utilize the stargates to come back and forth. The lower class Anunnaki use spaceships to come back and forth. And some Anunnaki are referred to as, what is that? No, I lost the word. Anyway, so the higher class Anunnaki can teleport directly from Nibiru to our planet here without going through any dangers or anything like that. Anything like that. And there have been continuous contact with Nibiru over thousands of years, although it's not publicized. And so what is happening now is Nibiru is on its final approach to Earth. It's going to burst up through the water in the Gulf of Aden. Yes, it's going to explosively affect the waters of this world. And it is going to create very, very strange problems. Very strange problems. The human race is in for a shock, is in for a surprise when Nibiru comes. Now, the interesting thing is, Nibiru is created from scratch. It has several different classifications of people in it. So, it used to be, it's, I was thinking about what I was going to have for dinner. I've been kind of sick for like 2 days now, and so therefore, I tend to wander a little bit, and I was just thinking about dinner. But anyway, what importance do you think this subject has? Why should we be jubilant? Yes, why should we be jubilant? Well, I'll tell you. Anyway, I think we're going to have to bring this to a close, but we'll just say that anytime Nibiru comes by, it causes great havoc on this Earth. It causes increased volcanic eruptions. It causes increased earthquakes. It causes global warming. All of the factors mentioned in the Cauldron about Nibiru are happening right now and in the last few years. Earthquakes and volcanic eruptions are totally off the scale. They're totally off the scale. Global warming is heating up because the sun is acting out as Nibiru approaches. And what's going to happen? Because basically Nibiru entered this solar system at about the point where we have the asteroid belt today. Now, the asteroid belt is the remnants of a water planet called Tiamat that existed anciently, but on one of its first flybys into our solar system, Nibiru destroyed that planet. Just destroyed it. So that apparently is the point of termination, where it crosses the ecliptic, because there is a point where Nibiru comes up from the south, pierces the ecliptic, and goes above the ecliptic momentarily before it drops down again. And so that is what created the asteroid belt. It's the remnants of one of the original planets in the solar system. And that planet was indeed a water planet. Now, there are some people who claim that the Earth is a big remnant of Tiamat. Now, I don't know if I buy that or not. But the moon is mighty mysterious. So it could very well be that we captured one of Nibiru's moons into our own orbit. And let's see, what else do I need to tell you? So, oh yes. To make things even weirder, there is a great likelihood that Nibiru is actually in its own universe, a bubble universe, if you will. And in this bubble universe, the laws of the universe are different than what we're used to here. For example, what we would call magic and other things like that are commonplace in that universe. And, if you have the sufficient mental power, you can teleport. And there was a time when Nibiru was able to teleport itself anywhere it wanted, at least in this galaxy. I don't know about others, but at least as far as the Milky Way is concerned, but possibly other galaxies. And so for a long, long time, it was sort of like a mobile command center, if you will. Then there was a catastrophic event that caused that solar system to come to an end. You see, Nibiru was already created. And acted as a lifeboat. And it appears that Nibiru may have come from the Sirius star system, although that's not 100% sure. And so if you want, you can study into this, but you won't find a lot of the things that I'm saying. Yeah, I can't understand why, but there don't seem to be any really good explorers in English, unless I want to use my straw, Now, Nibiru is in its own bubble universe. Now, a long time ago, I had a vision where I was taken to Nibiru, and I got to see what it was like. There are places on the sun, for instance. Actually, if you, once Nibiru is here, the back and forth traffic between our planet and Nibiru will be great. Now, oh yes, one thing I forgot to say is Nibiru is apparently sort of a cross between a giant planet and a giant spaceship. And apparently, the governments haven't wanted to cooperate with that, because the Vatican and the governments know for damn sure where Nibiru is. Why do you think the Vatican has leased a telescope to search the southern skies? And so that's pretty much it. You've got the basics now. But when Nibiru gets close, then we will eventually become part of their bubble universe. We're going to transition from our universe to the universe of Nibiru. And then all the fun starts, because there's different rules of physics and harmonics and all of that. And if I want to get started, if you want to get started, this is a good place. It's a good place because anyway, I'm going to have to terminate this broadcast, and we will see you again next time.